This is case number IT0370I, the prosecutor versus Nebojša Pavkovic.
Well, this afternoon the court is convened to conduct the initial appearance of Nebojša Pavkovic. Mr. Pavković, could you stand, please? Can you confirm to me that you can hear the proceedings in your own language and are able to follow what has happened so far?
I can hear everything and I have understood everything.
Very much. Please be seated. Now may I take the appearances for the prosecutor?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm Tom Hannes on behalf of the Office of the Prosecutor. I'm assisted by trial attorneys Christina Mueller and Carolyn Edgerton on my right, and our case manager, Susan Grogan.
Thank you, Mr. Hannes. And for the accused, Mr. Pavković?
Yes, thank you, Your Honour. I can indicate for the accused, Krista Lucas, as assigned duty counsel. And also indicate, Your Honour, that I was assigned this morning and I'm accompanied by Mr. Aleksic. Mr. Pavković has applied for tribunal legal aid and has sought to have Mr. Aleksic as his assigned counsel. My understanding at this stage is that Mr. Aleksic is not on the list of eligible counsel, and in the limited time available, the registry has not been able to determine eligibility. However, Mr. Pavković has requested that Mr. Aleksic be present in court today for the initial appearance, and I make an application in that regard.
Well, Ms. Lucas, I was alerted this morning to the interest that Mr. Aleksic may have in the case and his current involvement in advising the accused, Mr. Pavković, and I'm grateful to him for the assistance he has been providing and would encourage him to continue to do that. Meanwhile, I recognize his presence in the court. I'm happy to see him here, and I'm grateful to you for proposing that he should be here.
Thank you, Your Honour.
Now, the principal purpose of this hearing is to ascertain the position of the accused at this stage in relation to the charges against him. One thing that he might do is insist that the indictment, which is a very substantial document, is read in full. What is his position, Ms. Lucas, in that regard?
Yes, Your Honour, I can indicate that the defence waives the reading of the indictment, and that has been discussed with Mr. Pavković.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Pavković, I have to ask you to stand just briefly once more, please. Can you confirm to me, first of all, for the purposes of the record of these proceedings, your full name?
Mr. President, I am Nebojša Pavković, Colonel General of the Army of Yugoslavia, retired.
What is your date of birth?
Mr. President, I was born in 1946 on the 10th of April.
And can you give me, please, the address at which you were residing immediately before you left to come to The Hague?
Mr. President, my address is Belgrade, the street of Mollerova, number 11.
Now, Mr. Pavković, can I take it that you have seen the indictment in your own language and been able to read it in full?
Mr. President, I have received the indictment. I have read it and I am fully familiarized with it.
And have you been able to take advice from a lawyer of your choice on the plea, if any, which you should tender at this stage?
Mr. President, I have taken advice from a lawyer and I have decided on my plea.
And can I therefore proceed to take your plea from you now?
Mr. President, yes.
Mr. Pavković, I am going to read certain parts from the indictment, the crucial elements, so that you will be able to tender your plea. And when I come to each of the 5 counts against you, I will ask you whether you plead guilty or not guilty, and you should answer in respect of each of these charges separately as I come to them. Now, do you understand that?
Mr. President, I understand that fully.
Now, Mr. Pavković, the indictment charges you, along with 3 others, 2 of whom have appeared before the tribunal already in the same situation as you do now. That's Vladimir Lazarević and Sreten Lukic, and one of whom has not appeared, that is Vlastimir Dordević. You're charged, along with each of them, that you are individually responsible for crimes alleged under Articles 3, 5 and 7.1 of the Statute of the Tribunal. It is said that you planned, instigated, ordered, committed or otherwise aided and abetted in the planning, preparation or execution of these crimes. However, by using the word committed in the indictment, the prosecutor does not suggest that you physically perpetrated any of the crimes charged personally. Committing refers to participation or being part of a joint criminal enterprise as a co-perpetrator. It is said in the indictment that the purpose of the joint criminal enterprise was, among other things, the expulsion of a substantial portion of the Kosovo Albanian population from the territory of the province of Kosovo in an effort to ensure continued Serbian control over the province. It is said that to fulfill that criminal purpose, each of you, acting individually or along with the others, and indeed with other people, both, it is said, known and unknown, that you significantly contributed to the joint criminal enterprise using the legal and factual powers available to you. It is also stated that the joint criminal enterprise came into existence no later than October 1998 and continued until 20th June 1999. And it is said that the crimes which are alleged in the indictment were committed between the 1st of January and the 20th of June 1999. Now that's the allegation of direct individual criminal responsibility. There is also an allegation that the crimes set out in counts 1 to 5 were within the object of the joint criminal enterprise, or alternatively, that the crimes set out in counts 3 to 5 were natural and foreseeable consequences of the joint criminal enterprise. Now, separately from these allegations of individual criminal responsibility, there is an allegation which is made against you and the other three co-accused, that while holding positions of superior authority, you were responsible for the acts or omissions of your subordinates. Now that allegation is made in terms of Article 7.3 of the Statute of the Tribunal. A superior is responsible under that article for the criminal acts of his subordinates if he knew or had reason to know that they were about to commit these acts or had done so and failed to take necessary and reasonable measures to prevent the acts or to punish the perpetrators. So these are the two separate bases on which it is said you are criminally liable. I turn now to the particular counts against you, numbers 1 to 5. The first of these is that by the acts and omissions set out in paragraphs 21 to 29 of the indictment, you along with your co-accused, other named persons in the indictment, and others known and unknown, planned, instigated, ordered, committed, or otherwise aided and abetted the planning, preparation, or execution of Count 1, deportation, a crime against humanity, punishable under Article 5D of the Statute of the Tribunal. To that charge, Mr. Pavković, do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Mr. President, to that charge in the indictment, I plead not guilty.
I move then to Count 2, in which it is said that by the acts and omissions set out in paragraphs 21 to 30, and in particular paragraph 25, you and the others I've already mentioned planned, instigated, ordered, committed, or otherwise aided and abetted the planning, preparation, or execution of Count 2 other inhumane acts, in particular forcible transfer, a crime against humanity, punishable under Article 5.1 of the Statute of the Tribunal. To that charge, Mr. Pavković, do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Mr. President, I plead not guilty.
Thank you. Count 3 is in these terms: that by the acts and omissions set out in paragraphs 21 to 32 of the indictment, you and the others already mentioned planned, instigated, ordered, committed, or otherwise aided and abetted the planning, preparation, or execution of Count 3 murder, a crime against humanity, punishable under Article 5A of the Statute of the Tribunal. To that count, Mr. Pavković, do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Mr. President, I plead not guilty.
On exactly the same factual basis, you are charged with Count 4, also a charge of murder, but this time as a violation of the laws or customs of war, punishable under Article 3 of the Statute of the Tribunal, and recognized by Article 3.1a of the Geneva Conventions. To that count, Mr. Pavković, do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Mr. President, I plead not guilty.
Thank you. And I now deal with the last of the 5 counts in these terms: that by the acts and omissions set out in paragraphs 21 to 34 of the indictment, you and the others already mentioned planned, instigated, ordered, committed, or otherwise aided and abetted the planning, preparation, or execution of Count 5 persecutions on political, racial, and religious grounds, a crime against humanity, punishable under Article 5H of the Statute of the Tribunal. To that charge, Mr. Pavković, do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Mr. President, I plead not guilty to that charge as well.
Thank you, Mr. Pavković. You may sit for the moment. In light of the pleas that you have tendered, these pleas of not guilty, the registrar will be instructed to fix a date for trial when appropriate. Meanwhile, you will remain in custody, as I'm certain you have already been advised. Now, Mr. Hannes, can you assist me with an indication of the likely date on which you will have complied with your initial obligation of disclosure?
Your Honor, I'm advised we can do that by the end of next week.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Pavković, when you receive the documents you are bound to receive initially, that is, the documents which have been submitted in support of the indictment and any statements that were taken from you, once you receive these, you have 30 days in which to submit to the tribunal any preliminary motions which you wish to make. So these are the only dates that you immediately need to be concerned about. You will be advised by your counsel of other significant dates as they approach.
Mr. President, I have understood what you explained to me just now.
Now, Ms. Lucas, is there any matter you wish to raise at this stage?
No, there isn't, Your Honour.
I understand that Mr. Pavković has certain health problems. Is there anything that I need to be concerned about in that regard?
Well, I covered that matter briefly with Mr. Pavković during my initial conference today, and there's nothing that we need to alert Your Honour to at the moment.
Is it appropriate, do you consider, for me to direct the same question to him?
Yes, Your Honour, I think it is appropriate.
Thank you. Mr. Pavković, just finally, are there any matters that you wish to raise with me in connection either with the proceedings or the circumstances in which you've come here or the circumstances in which you are presently being detained?
Mr. President, as for the condition of my health, right now I am fit and I have been fully made aware of the indictment ICTY 0370I, and I have pleaded with the full awareness of it. As for my further treatment, specialist checkups are underway here at clinics in The Hague, and there is no problem in that respect whatsoever.
Thank you very much.
Secondly, in relation to the question that you put, as for the way I have been treated ever since I arrived on Dutch soil, I have been treated fairly ever since I was admitted by the official authorities of the tribunal as I was transferred to the detention unit in terms of staying at the detention unit, also my contacts with the administration and the staff, the standard in that respect, and I have no objections whatsoever. On the contrary.
Very much.
Treće, želim da vam se posebno zahvalim.
Thirdly, I wish to thank you in particular for having made it possible for my defense counsel, Mr. Aleksić, to attend these proceedings. I have authorized him to represent me pro bono in this case.
Hvala.
Thank you.
Should I retain control of this case, and at the moment I do not know whether it is a case which will remain with me as a pre-trial judge, but if I do retain control, what I would hope would happen is that any communications that have to be made on your behalf will be made through your counsel. You've started on a very firm footing of a good relationship with counsel present in court. It is of great assistance to the conduct of proceedings in this tribunal when there is a good working relationship between the accused and his counsel. So I invite you to bear that carefully in mind as the proceedings progress. I'm extremely grateful to counsel on both sides for the assistance they have provided in expediting these proceedings this afternoon, and I now think it appropriate to adjourn the proceedings. Thank you very much.
Your Honor.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Hannes.
I'm sorry, before you go, I just wanted to clarify one matter on the record regarding our estimate of when we could make our disclosure. I'm assuming we will have some verification as to who the counsel is to whom that should be made.
So I understand that. Thank you very much.
All rise. We have an event.